The wind screamed like something alive, slamming fists of ice against the Maple Street diner. Inside, Jessica Porter wiped the counter for the 5th time in an hour, more for rhythm than cleanliness. Burlington, Vermont had dissolved into a white void. The blizzard of the decade flattened streets, swallowed rooftops, and erased the horizon. She should close. She couldn't. "Another cup, hun?" she called to the lone regular, Mr. Winters, tucked into the corner booth like a wintering bird. "Better not," he sighed, sliding a 20 across the table. "Margaret'll have my hide if my blood pressure jumps again. You should close, Jessica. This storm's meaner by the minute." "I'll stay a little longer," she said, smiling. "Someone might need shelter." As if the storm heard, the door burst inward with a knifing gust of snow. An elderly woman staggered through the threshold, coat too thin, silver hair powdered white, lips blue with cold. "Oh my God," Jessica breathed, catching her before she fell. "Are you all right?" "I got lost," the woman whispered, trembling. "Taxi dropped me on the wrong street. I can't find my son's address. Mr. Winters, the heat, please." Jessica hustled the woman into a booth, wrapped her in the emergency blanket she kept under the counter, and pressed a steaming mug of chamomile into her hand. "Breathe in the steam. Slow." Color crept back into the woman's cheek. "Thank you, dear. I'm Eleanor. Eleanor Mitchell." "Jessica Porter," she said, sliding into the opposite seat. "Rough day to visit Burlington, Mrs. Mitchell. Where were you headed?" "Lakeside Manor. Apartment 1201. Eleanor's hands still shook around the cup. "I haven't seen my son in 5 years. It was time." Jessica's eyebrows rose despite herself. Lakeside Manor was the gleaming glass jewel on the lake. Top-floor views, security, a lobby that smelled like polished money. Whoever Eleanor's son was, he wore success like cologne. "That's across town," Jessica said gently. "And in this weather, the roads there might be closed till morning." Eleanor's gaze dipped. "I should have called first. But I wanted to surprise him." Regret thinned her voice. "He's always been so busy." "You can wait here as long as you need," Jessica said, squeezing her hand. "The coffee's hot and the roof doesn't leak." Mr. Winters buttoned his coat with a groan. "I'll shuffle off before they close my street." He tipped his cap to Eleanor. "You're in good hands. Our Jessica's got the best heart in Burlington." After he left, the diner grew very quiet, just the stovetop's gentle hiss and the blizzard's relentless howl. Jessica ladled chicken noodle soup, set it in front of Eleanor, and tried to make light conversation. The older woman, warmed and grateful, watched Jessica with clear blue eyes that missed very little. "You're the owner?" Eleanor asked. "I manage it," Jessica laughed softly. "Some days I pretend it's mine." "You keep it like it is," Eleanor said, taking in the polished chrome and spotless vinyl. "Charming." "It pays the bills," Jessica said. "And I like the people. Everyone has a story." "And yours?" Eleanor's eyes sparked. "A bright, kind young woman like you should be running her own place." Jessica's smile faltered. "Life took a turn," she said, smoothing her apron. "Ancient history." She pushed the soup closer. "Eat while it's hot." By late afternoon, the storm thickened, snow screaming against the windows. Jessica called her boss to explain she'd keep the diner open as emergency shelter, then made up a cot in the back office. Eleanor tried calling her son, voicemail. She left a message and set the receiver down with a sigh. "He'll see it," Jessica said. "You'll be with him soon." "Ethan has the building notify him about visitors," Eleanor murmured, settling onto the couch. "He's cautious." Jessica blinked. "Ethan Mitchell." The name arrived with headlines. Mitchell Innovations, an algorithm that rewired supply chains, ruthless acquisitions, a CEO photographed like a winter storm, cold, unstoppable, blue-eyed. "My son," Eleanor said, pulling the blanket to her chin. Jessica hid her surprise and tucked the blanket more snugly. "Rest now. I'm right outside." The power flickered, held. Snow crawled up the glass like a living thing. Jessica was wiping a table when identical headlights bored through the white and a black SUV shouldered the curb. The door opened, wind howled, and Ethan Mitchell stepped into the diner, coat dusted with snow, jaw cut from glass, those famous blue eyes scanning the room until they found her. "I'm looking for Eleanor Mitchell," he said. No greeting, just purpose. "She left a message that she was here." "Your mother's in my office," Jessica answered, steady. 5 years of dealing with difficult customers had taught her composure. She was half frozen when she arrived. Something flickered behind his stare, concern, gone as quickly as it came. "Take me to her." "She's sleeping," Jessica said. "The cold wore her out." "I didn't drive through a blizzard to be told I can't see my own mother," he replied, voice level, tone iced. "And I didn't keep this place open in a whiteout to have someone barge in and wake a woman who needs rest." She matched him without raising her voice. "She's warm. Safe. She'll be thrilled to see you when she wakes." A beat of silence, a negotiation without words. Ethan exhaled and gave a single nod. "May I at least look in on her?" "Quietly," she said, and led him to the office, cracked the door so he could see Eleanor breathing slow, cheeks no longer pale. "She meant to surprise you. Got lost. Your address was in her purse." He stared at his mother's sleeping face, unreadable. "She didn't tell me she was coming." "Families are complicated," Jessica murmured, closing the door. Back in the diner, she gestured to a booth. "Coffee? You look like you could use something hot." He started to refuse, then glanced at the storm clawing the windows. "Thank you." Jessica poured, slid a cup across, took the seat opposite him. Up close, he looked less like a headline and more like a man who used self-control as armor. "How did you find her?" he asked after a sip. The cup paused in his hand, surprised by the flavor. "She stumbled in. Taxi dropped her on the wrong street." Jessica wrapped her fingers around her own cup. "She mentioned making amends." His jaw tightened. "My mother excels at dramatic gestures." "Braving a blizzard at her age isn't drama," Jessica said. "It's determination." "You don't know anything about our situation," he said, sharp. "True," she shrugged. "But I know she could have died trying to get to you. That means something." His eyes shifted, curiosity now. People usually performed awe or fear around him. This diner manager met him like an equal and refused to surrender her ground. "Do you know who I am?" he asked suddenly. Jessica's mouth curved. "Is that your opening line with everyone?" A startled, almost amused twitch at the corner of his lips. "Only with people who aren't impressed." "I'm impressed by people who earn respect, not those who demand it," she said. "But yes. Your mother mentioned you run Mitchell Innovations. And you're?" "Jessica Porter. I manage this place." He studied her. The dress under the apron was simple, jewelry minimal, shoes practical, but the way she occupied space was not. Precise. Educated. Not the story her surroundings told. "How long have you worked here?" he asked. "Long enough to know when someone's conducting an interview," she replied. "Why?" "Call me Ethan," he said automatically. "And I'm curious about the woman who kept my mother from freezing." Lightning crackled. The lights hiccuped and died. Wind roared, the room fell to black. "Perfect," Jessica muttered, moving in the dark like someone who'd practiced this. A flashlight flared under the counter. "Generator will kick on for essentials. But main lights are done until the grid returns. Need help?" Ethan was already taking off his coat. "Well, well," she said wryly, the flashlight haloing her face. "The CEO knows how to roll up his sleeves." "I wasn't born in a boardroom," he said dryly. "Could have fooled me." She handed him a task. "Breaker panel by the back door. I'll find candles." 15 minutes later the diner glowed. Hurricane lamps, candles, gas stove warming the air. The emergency heaters hummed in the office. Jessica gave Ethan a second coffee. Their fingers brushed, just a fraction, and the charge caught them both off guard. "Thank you," he said quietly. For taking care of my mother. Anyone would have. No, he said, meeting her eyes. They wouldn't. The sincerity in his voice unnerved her, so she hid inside motion. I'll check supplies. Might be a long night. He reached, then thought better, his hand falling away empty. I didn't mean to offend. You didn't. She lifted her chin. But some stories aren't for strangers during power outages. We're hardly strangers, he said. You've seen me in a blizzard. I've seen you command a room without raising your voice. She smothered a smile and escaped to the kitchen. The wind battered the walls. The old building creaked. Somewhere in the dark, a new story began to take shape, one written in white and silence and the fragile heat between two people who should have nothing in common. Upstairs, Eleanor slept on in the warm office. Downstairs, Jessica lit more candles, set soup to simmer, and told herself the tremor in her hands belonged to the cold. It didn't. Two fault lines. The storm deepened. Jessica built islands of light, a candle here, a lamp there, until the diner looked like something from an old postcard, familiar, safe, improbably golden. She returned from checking on Eleanor to find Ethan staring out at the snow as if calculating its angles. Roads to Lakeside? She asked. He checked his phone. Close. Plows paused until morning. Then welcome to the Maple Street Inn, she said, deadpan. Tonight's special, survival. He almost smiled. She poured fresh coffee. He accepted it like a truce. How'd you end up here? He asked. You don't move like this. His hand took in the diner. You move like someone who used to command boardrooms. She set 2 bowls, ladled soup. Life changes our routes. That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting. He might have pressed. Then the back door blew open, snow whirling into the kitchen. A man stumbled in, expensive overcoat crusted white, relief breaking across his face. Thank God. I thought I'd freeze. Ethan went very still. James. The newcomer straightened, brushing snow from his sleeves. Handsome, groomed, smile practiced. His gaze slid to Jessica, and stopped. Shock flashed, followed by something darker. Jessica Porter, he said, voice tightening. Well, this is unexpected. The name formed like frost on glass in Jessica's chest. James Harrington. Her fingers tightened on the ladle. Of all the diners in all the storms. You two know each other, Ethan said, not asking. Ancient history, James said lightly, extending a hand Jessica did not take. Ms. Porter was an analyst at my firm. Was, Jessica said. Past tense for a reason. James turned to Ethan. Your mother called the office. When I heard you were out here in this, he gestured vaguely at the white world, I came to help. Couldn't reach you. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You drove in this? Had a meeting in town anyway. Nortec. James smiled. We can talk later. Jessica gathered the tray. I'll take this to Eleanor. James moved to block her path, carelessly charming. Let me help. I've got it, she said, slipping past him. Ethan watched the exchange. A hairline fracture appeared in the surface of the night. He drew James into the pantry, shut the door on the candlelit kitchen. What's your history with her? Ethan asked. James spread his hands. Straight to the point. She worked at Harrington Capital for 18 months. Promising until she had a crisis. Called it ethical. He gave a pitying smile. Shame. She had potential. That's all. What else would there be? James's smile didn't reach his eyes. Don't tell me the great Ethan Mitchell is interested in a diner manager. She's not what she seems, Ethan said carefully. Please, James scoffed. I know her better than you. She couldn't handle reality. Fell apart, turned on us. Accused us of fraud. SEC found nothing. Reputation ruined. Now she pours coffee in Vermont. Ethan absorbed it in silence. 15 years of partnership with James had taught him to weigh tone as much as content. Something in the practiced ease itched. She saved my mother, Ethan said. Then send flowers, James replied lightly. Just don't confuse gratitude with judgment. He clapped Ethan's shoulder. Now, shall we eat? I'm starving. In the dining room, Eleanor and Jessica spoke in low tones. Jessica's posture was calm, her eyes guarded. When the men joined them, Eleanor brightened. You rewired the basement when you were 12, she told Ethan, eyes sparkling. Nearly burned the house down. That was once, he said, mouth threatening a smile. Ethan's always been ahead, James said, reaching for a sandwich. It's what makes him brilliant. Willing to take risks others avoid. Even when those risks affect lives? Jessica asked, voice mild, current underneath. Business affects lives, James said easily. The trick is serving the greater good. Not getting trapped in sentiment. And who decides the greater good? Jessica countered. The ones with power? The ones with vision, James corrected smoothly. Wouldn't you agree, Ethan? Ethan felt the table tilt, tools appearing in strangers' hands. I believe profit without principle collapses, he said at last. Jessica's gaze flickered. Surprise or approval, he couldn't tell. James's smile thinned, then recovered. How long have you been in Burlington, Miss Porter? 3 years. James asked. 4, she said. Amazing how time flies, he said. You were involved in something interesting before you left my firm. Perhaps you've told Ethan. James, Jessica said quietly, setting down her spoon. Don't. Eleanor read the room like a conductor. I'm suddenly exhausted, she announced. Tomorrow. Of course, Jessica said quickly, helping her up. Blankets are warm. When the women disappeared down the hall, James leaned in. She hasn't told you, he murmured. Tell me what, Ethan said evenly. Why she really left New York. James sighed. She accused us of fraud. Claimed we cooked numbers for acquisitions, tried to run to the SEC. It was nonsense. We were cleared. But the damage was done. No firm would touch her. No one trusts a traitor. She hid. Now she's here. With your mother. The night before our biggest deal. Nortec, Ethan said. James's expression was frankly bothered. We're on the edge of a career-defining acquisition. Don't let complications derail it. Later, Jessica found them huddled, voices low, silence snapping taut when she approached. Ethan looked at her differently, less curiosity, more calculation. She heard it like a door shutting. The generator will hold, she said. If you'll excuse me, gentlemen, inventory doesn't count itself. Jessica, Ethan called. We need to talk. She didn't look back. I think your partner said everything. She let the door swing behind her. Upstairs, Ethan stared at the ceiling of the staff room cot and didn't sleep. When he finally drifted, a soft knock woke him. Eleanor stood in the doorway, blanket wrapped like a shawl. We need to talk about Jessica, she said, sweeping in. James has already poisoned your mind, hasn't he? It's complicated, Ethan began. There's history. There's character, Eleanor cut in. That girl saved my life. You looked at her like a problem to neutralize, not a person to listen to. You're your father's son, Ethan. Don't make me wonder if I raised a stock price instead of a man. Before he could answer, raised voices drifted up the stairs. He was on his feet instantly. He found Jessica nose to nose with James in the glow of lamp. You don't get to threaten me again, she said, voice low, furious. Threaten? James put on innocence like a tie. We were reminiscing. You'll leave now, Jessica said. Roads are clearing. Take them. James looked past her to Ethan. We should go. The Nortec situation can't wait. Nortec, Jessica repeated, the word like ice. She turned to Ethan. That's what I found. Ethan's body went still. Explain, he said. Don't, James snapped. We're leaving. But Ethan didn't move. Explain, he repeated. Jessica lifted her chin. 3 years ago, I found irregularities in Nortec's financials while at Harrington Capital. Systematic. Inflated valuation. When I raised it, I was told to adjust. When I refused, I was removed. Then someone used my access to alter original data and frame me. By the time I reached the SEC, the trail was scrubbed and I was the villain. You're delusional, James said, edges finally showing. Nortec was vetted. By your team, Jessica said. The same analysts promoted right after I was fired. Convenient, isn't it? Enough, Ethan said, voice softening to something more dangerous. James, did you know Nortec's numbers were cooked? There was no fraud, James said, calibrating his smile. Aggressive accounting. Everyone does it. We would have realigned the reporting post-deal. No harm. Except to shareholders, employees, pension funds, Jessica said. But what's collateral damage between friends? James turned on her. You think you can stroll in from your snow globe life and undo a decade of work? I think truth melts pretty fast, she said. Ethan's gaze didn't leave James. Did you know? Silence stretched until it snapped. Yes, James said finally, voice hard. I knew they padded. So what? You've looked the other way before. Don't grow a conscience now because a pretty face pours you coffee. Ethan's expression didn't change. Something behind it did. You said you have evidence, he told Jessica. I do, she said. Original reports. Emails directing changes. Access logs proving I wasn't at a terminal when my credentials were used. It's in a safe place. Alleged evidence, James sneered. Conveniently out of reach. I don't need to show it to you tonight, Jessica replied. Just to tell you what's coming. The rest will arrive when the roads do. Eleanor, who had drifted in with the quiet inevitability of weather, spoke from the stairs. Young man, she said to James, I spent 40 years married to a science teacher. I know integrity. I don't see it in you. James laughed once, humorless. Ethan, if she goes public, Mitchell Innovations goes with me. We've been joined at the hip on deals for a decade. You'll burn your empire for a waitress with a martyr complex. Manager, Jessica said, too tired to smile. Ethan stood. He had the sudden, heavy clarity of a man who realizes the storm is not outside the window but inside the house. Get out, he told James. You'll regret this, James hissed. Lawsuit. Investor flight. Out, Ethan repeated, stepping forward. Now. James hesitated. Then he buttoned his coat, face smooth as marble. Not over, he said, and vanished into the white. The silence he left behind felt louder than the wind. Let him go, Ethan said. We have larger problems. Eleanor squeezed Jessica's arm. Tea, she announced briskly, as if summoning civilization in a frontier town. There's nothing disaster can do to 3 cups of strong tea. When the mugs were on the table, Ethan faced Jessica. His voice was quieter than it had been all night. You've had this for 3 years. Why not use it? I tried, Jessica said, suddenly bone-tired. No one would listen. James rewrote me as a hysteric. There were threats. Someone broke into my apartment. Next day, I got a photo of my parents' graves with a note. Some things should stay buried. I understood the message. Ethan swallowed a sharp word. He worked it into a vow instead. I need to see what you have. So you can contain it? Jessica asked, bitterness pricking. Spin it. So I can do the right thing, he said, and surprised himself with how much he meant it. I don't know what that looks like yet. But burying the truth isn't it? Eleanor slid a mug toward him. My son has a spine when it counts, she said. Between your evidence and his influence, you can stitch this tear clean. Jessica stared at the steam rising from her tea. Hope, the fragile, dangerous kind, pressed against her ribs. It's in a Boston safe deposit box, she said. When the storm clears, I'll take you. Ethan nodded. We go together. And then, she asked. And then we bring it to the people who can't be bought or bullied. Properly. No shortcuts. Your company will take a hit, Jessica warned. It will survive, he said. If it doesn't, it wasn't worth keeping. Eleanor's smile bloomed like sunrise. That's my boy. Sometime before dawn, the wind gentled. The diner hummed with the soft noises of a place that had decided to endure. Jessica washed the last of the dishes. Ethan covered her hand with his. "I'm sorry I doubted you," he said. "You had reason," she conceded. "Loyalty to friends is rare." "Not at the expense of truth," he said. Something in her eased. A wall shifted, a door unlatched. Outside, snow fell softer, like a curtain lowering between acts. Chapter 3: After the Storm. Morning arrived in a world remade. Burlington wore a new skin. Rooftops rounded with snow, branches jeweled with ice, lake a sheet of hammered steel. Plows carved corridors through drift. The Maple Street diner steamed with coffee, bacon, and relief. They left by noon, Eleanor tucked between them in the back of Ethan's SUV, blankets and thermos of coffee at her feet. Boston waited with answers and consequences. At the bank, steel and silence. In a private room, Jessica set a box on the table. Paper spoke. Original Nortec reports, email threads with surgical language, access logs with timestamps that did not match the hours she could prove she'd been elsewhere, receipts, keycard entries, camera stills. The patterns were so clean they looked like a confession. Ethan didn't say, "This could ruin me." He said, "This will save us." The next 6 months unspooled like a trial by water and fire. Mitchell Innovations disclosed what it had found. Partnerships tainted by fraudulent valuations, deals that needed unwinding, safeguards that would be instituted. Investors panicked, then paused, then took measure. Stocks dipped, then steadied. Journalists called it corporate atonement. Ethan called it a start. The SEC opened investigations not tethered to James's Rolodex this time. Whistleblowers emerged from every angle, drawn by the vacuum Jessica's courage created. Names fell. James Harrington's smile cracked on camera. His lawyer's tie flashed like a hazard sign. Indictments followed. An entire ecosystem, once invisible by design, flickered into view. Through it all, Jessica worked. Not as a symbol, but as an architect. At Ethan's request, she drafted a new ethics and compliance framework. Clean walls, glass doors, fireproof floors. She set up a hotline, staffed by third-party auditors. She wrote policies that sounded like people, not lawyers. She trained executives to tell the truth, even when it shaved a quarter point off guidance. "You're good at this," Ethan said one night, dropping into a chair opposite her. It was past midnight. The city glowed cold beyond the windows. "I'm good at what I wish someone had done for me," she replied. He smiled, exhausted, grateful. "I'm trying to be that someone now." "You're succeeding," she said, and meant it. They learned each other in the spaces between depositions and board meetings. How he took his coffee when he was nervous, black, to punish himself. How she stacked her notebooks by color. Yellow for strategy, blue for risk, red for lies. He learned the quickest way to make her laugh was to surrender an argument early and dramatically. She learned the quickest way to make him listen was to fall silent and hold his gaze until the noise inside him quieted. 6 months to the day after the blizzard, the headline blazed across Jessica's tablet. Harrington Capital executives indicted for securities fraud. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ethan's penthouse, watching a thin snowfall flutter over Lake Champlain. Ethan came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, rested his chin on her hair. "Quite the milestone," he said. "Not an anniversary," she teased. "But I'll accept champagne." 6 months since a lost mother walked into the right diner, he murmured. "Worth celebrating." "Justice is the celebration," she said, setting the tablet aside. "Not the prison term. The truth." He turned her gently, brushed a thumb along her cheekbone. "Speaking of milestones," he said, casual and not, and reached into his pocket for a small velvet box. She froze, laugh ready and failing. "What are you?" "Marry me," he said simply, opening the lid. A luminous emerald burned there, green as new leaves, set in platinum. "Ethan." "Because you're not a diamond," he said, and then grimaced. That sounded wrong. "Because you're rare, and vibrant, and exactly the color of your eyes when you're about to tell me I'm wrong in a meeting. And because diamonds remind you of a life that tried to erase you. I want a symbol that reminds you of us." Her throat closed. The city went soft around the edges. "This is sudden," she managed. "Is it?" His smile tilted, nervous in a way she'd never seen. "We've spent 6 months rebuilding something that should have been solid all along. We fall asleep over SEC transcripts and wake up arguing about whether material misstatement ruins breakfast. My mother swears we've been married since the night you told me no and made me listen anyway." "She is a romantic meddler," Jessica said, laughing helplessly. "She's usually right." He swallowed. "Say yes. Not to the job. I'll take your counteroffer or your refusal like a grown man, but to me. I want a life where your stubbornness is my compass and your integrity is my mirror." She looked down at the ring at the exact, improbable shade. When she looked back up, she saw the man who had walked through a blizzard without checking the stock price, and the man who had decided truth mattered more than market share, and the boy, somewhere inside, who had rewired a basement at 12 and nearly burned it down for the thrill of making something work. "Yes," she said, and slid the emerald onto her finger. "To you. The job is negotiable." He lifted her off the floor, relief breaking across his face like sunlight after snow. "Name your terms, Miss Porter." "Oh no," she said into his shoulder, laughing. "I'm Porter professionally. You can earn the rest." "Challenge accepted," he murmured, kissing her, and for once the city below didn't look cold at all. They celebrated that night at Maple Street Diner, now under new ownership. Jessica had bought it with part of the settlement won when the fraud web unraveled and the courts acknowledged what she'd shouted into the wind years earlier. The booths gleamed. The counters shone. The bell over the door chimed, and Mr. Winters shuffled in, carrying a small wrapped box. "Hope I'm not intruding," he said, eyes twinkling. "Heard a rumor about an engagement." "Your family," Jessica said, meaning it. Inside the package, a hand-carved wooden snowflake, delicate as lace. "To remember how it started," Mr. Winters said, voice gruff. "Perfect," she whispered. "Winter wedding," Ethan suggested, examining the carving. "In the diner?" Jessica deadpanned. "On the lake," Eleanor said decisively. "We'll keep each other warm." "December," Jessica said, surprising herself with how much she wanted it. 6 months later, snow dusted the shores of Lake Champlain like sugar. Jessica Porter became Jessica Porter Mitchell beneath an arch of winter roses and pine boughs. Eleanor glowed in silver blue, dabbing tears as vows were spoken. "When I met you," Ethan told her, voice steady in the bright cold, "you challenged everything I thought I knew about success. You chose truth when lies would have been easier. I promised to be worthy of that courage. When I met you," Jessica said, smiling through tears, "I thought you were the most arrogant man I'd ever met." Laughter warmed the winter air. "I wasn't wrong. But I found your arrogance matched by integrity, once you found it again. Your ambition matched by compassion. I promise to remind you of those truths whenever the world makes you forget." Snow began to fall as they kissed, soft, luminous flakes catching in her hair, on his lashes. Eleanor would later call it a perfect circle, a story written in weather and second chances.